So I'm Missy. I've been going to fellowship since I was probably 6. We moved here from Philadelphia. So I'd say I'm basically a lifer here. I started kind of noticing that I'm not normal physically in terms of like health issues. About between 10 and 12, I started fainting a lot. I started noticing like just things weren't right. And very quickly I was diagnosed with POTS, which is a autonomic disorder where your heart and your blood pressure can't get it together basically. And then a heart condition, which means my heart goes way too fast. So from an early age, I was familiar that sickness was just a part of my life, but I didn't know it would be my life. And that wasn't until I was about 18. Around 18 is when things started to really turn. And that's when we started to question, like, is this more than a heart condition? And through that, we had learned that I have a really rare form of Lyme disease. And with that, like, there really isn't, there's these long treatments, but I had never talked to anyone who was truly in remission or anyone who has truly overcome that. Yeah, so Lyme disease is a tick-borne illness, and I probably picked it up when I was about 6 years old, but it wasn't until I was about 18 that they discovered it. And that only happened through a bunch of other medical conditions, and they eventually tested for it. But what happens is people misunderstand because they think Lyme's curable. Like if you get Lyme within the 2 weeks and you're lucky enough to show a rash, because not everyone shows a rash, you can take antibiotics and you're good. The issue is when I got it when I was probably 6, 7, and didn't get it treated till I was like 18 through 20, it penetrates like every tissue. So what happens is like mine presented in a cardiovascular way. So I had 2 different heart conditions. It manifested in my central nervous condition, which is why I have POTS and some other autonomic issues. Your brain, it can cause a ton of mental health concerns. It feeds on like blood cells, like it just attacks every tissue it can get into. The rest of my life looked bleak. I had huge dreams for myself. Like I loved traveling, so I had my whole classes, all of them were based around me traveling abroad to like New York and Florence, and I was gonna have this huge career, and I was gonna get married when I was 30, and I had a very specific life for myself. And up until that point, life had gone pretty much how I thought it would. And so for me, what that looked like after my diagnosis was I had to drop out of school, or at least go home. I was still doing some online classes. And then from there, I was taking 100 pills a day. I was laying in bed at all times. And then for probably 10 months, I just didn't leave bed. And they didn't like how my treatment progress was going. And that's the point where they put me on IV antibiotics. So I had a surgical procedure to put in a port, and I had my own at-home nurse, and I was infusing 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. And that was, during that time, like I'd use that, how I would describe that time was numb. I numbed everything. I just needed to not be aware of what I was truly going through. I couldn't even think of God. I couldn't even like open my Bible. It just made me angry. And I like numb and anger are how I would describe those periods in my life. It honestly just felt hopeless. And especially when you have these doctors telling you like, oh, it's, you don't really get rid of Lyme disease, or you have to do like, people have had Lyme for 20 years and they've never healed from this.